wedding planning podcast.
Have you ever had that 2 a.m. thought of we feel like we've forgotten something?
Are you ticking things off your wedding list but still feeling slightly uneasy?
And you secretly wish someone would just run through everything and go, yeah, you're good.
So this episode is your What Have We Forgotten? Your living, breathing wedding checklist of all the tiny details, obvious things and commonly missed bits and pieces that can slip through the cracks.
Mm-hmm.
Now look, weddings are made up of hundreds, if not thousands of small decisions. And it's not the big things generally that you forget. You know, your venue, dress, photographer, you've got all of that covered. It's those little in-between practical human details that no one really talks about until it's too late. So we're going to walk you through them. You will forget something.
Totally agree.
Everybody does. And you know what? It really very rarely matters. Your guests won't notice, your suppliers will adapt, and your day will still be incredible, we promise. So this episode really isn't about perfection. It's about peace of mind.
Yeah, I think that is so true. Everything in there, like, it very rarely matters is such a key point to put across. Like, I think the level of stress that people find themselves under in the lead up to a wedding, it can really take over. So just keep it in mind. It really will all come good.
It's about perspective, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But we'll talk a bit about the obvious things that get overlooked, the things that we see kind of time and time again that people always assume are sorted, but they're often not. So I think the first one is who's bringing the rings.
Yes, kind of a big one. And amazingly, it does happen. Not infrequently in my experience. I don't know about yours.
No, and it's also kind of the thing that always happens in the films as well. Like, I always think when you watch a film and there's a wedding, everyone's like, oh my goodness, where are the rings? Actually, that is also real life. So
too true.
Just make sure someone's got the rings. You know who's got them and they know they've got them, I think. One of the biggest things, if you don't have a coordinator, is who's in charge on the day. So who's answering the supplier questions? Who's making sure things are keeping to time? Who's doing all of that? If it's not in your budget to have an on-the-day coordinator, then who are you tasking with that job? Because it's a big job.
It is. And don't think for a second that you can just fudge it. Because unless all of your suppliers are like your bezies and are just going to be there anyway, everybody will have a timetable that they need to stick to.
Yeah, and I think as well, if you're asking friends or family to do it, perhaps consider who maybe doesn't drink as much as another one of your guests. And also who will stay calm in the moment, because you might have a fantastic best man or bridesmaid or member of your wedding party that is really good at organising things, but actually in the moment is going to be so overwhelmed by it that it might be that they end up coming to you going, oh, this isn't working, this isn't. You want that calm person that can go, do you know what, that's fine, that's not working. The suppliers have said they're going to change that.
Cool heads.
Yeah, cool heads. So I think that's a big one. Who's in charge on the day? And kind of leading on from that, and it links to it, is have you shared the final timings with everyone, with all your suppliers? So I suppose when I am doing on-the-day coordination for couples, all the suppliers a month out will get a big spreadsheet of all the plans, all the timings, everything. So every supplier has a few weeks before the wedding to just take it all in and look at it, and they can come back to me and go, oh, I've just seen that you said I'm setting up at this time. Actually, I want to set up at this time.
Yeah.
Or, oh, we've not got quite enough time to do a sound check in that spot. So making sure you've shared those final timings, at least a month. I'd say a month is a good amount of time in advance. Make sure you share it with everyone. And that will mean that you'll have a lot less issues.
So when you say everyone, would you say it's better to share it with more people that might need it than it is to not share it with everybody that might need it? So this is the one case where oversharing is good.
Yeah, not with guests, not with family. No. I think family can then all of a sudden see something that they go, oh, don't know why you're doing it like that. You've got to 4 weeks before your wedding, share it with your suppliers.
Yeah.
So every single supplier I share it with the fridge hire company, for example. They don't actually need to know what's happening on the day. They just need to know when they're dropping off and picking up. But just sharing it with everyone, they can pick and choose the information they need. So your full plan with everybody.
Got that? Full plan?
Yeah, all of them.
Suppliers. No exceptions.
One of the other things that gets overlooked is feeding your suppliers.
Yes.
I think we've talked about it before. Quite often, I think couples sign away their contracts. They get, that's a year, maybe 18 months before the day. And most supplier contracts for people that are there on the day will have a meal included in that. And it's something you just forget about.
Exactly.
Because, it's not something that's key to how your day is going to run, but it is actually really key to how your day is going to run because people will be hungry and tired.
I was going to say, if your photographer's blood sugar is plummeted and you've still got your evening shoots to do, then, but seriously. And you don't have to, we've said this before, you don't have to allocate them a place at table.
No. Just feed them. And I think when to feed them, people always ask, when can the suppliers eat? Probably not the favourite answer from a caterer, but the suppliers, especially your photographer, need to eat when you're eating. Because when you're eating is the only point where they can't take photos. But if you've got speeches either side of course, like speeches before starters, speeches after starters, that still doesn't give them enough time to have downtime.
No.
They're generally there for 8 to 10 hours on your day. So, just take that into consideration. I think they're the obvious things that I see.
Well, we will file that and keep that in mind.
Wildly Wed, the real wedding planning podcast.
So when it comes to getting ready details, often forgotten because you've been focusing on the main event, obviously, what else do we need to keep in mind, Keshira?
There's some really tiny little bits that are quite nice to have, like hangers to hang your dress on and suits and things like that. But actually, one of the key things is making sure there's enough space for getting ready.
Yes. Yeah.
The amount of times I'll speak to a bride, for example, and they'll say, I've got 6 bridesmaids, we're having hair and makeup, and they're in a hotel and they've got 1 hotel room. You cannot fit 6 bridesmaids and a bride and hair and makeup artists. Generally, you probably have 2 if there's that many of you. In a hotel room comfortably. You need space, you need light, you need mirrors. And if you can have somewhere where you can open windows or step outside, just lowering that overwhelm. So really checking in on where you're getting ready and what that area is like. If you're able to see it, if you're able to kind of make plans for that, I think is really important. Making sure you've got a steamer or an iron, or you've had your outfits hanging up beforehand, so it's not just out of the box, put it on.
Or that last minute scramble of, quick, somebody run a hot shower and just wafting around with a frock.
Yeah, they're the kind of little bits, but they're the bits that will make a difference to you. And if you see on the day that something's a bit creased or something's a bit, again, it's not going to be the end of the world for you. But if you come prepared, then at least you can fix it. Food, water while you're getting ready, making sure you have some form of breakfast, some drinks, some tea, some coffee, not near outfits, please. But making sure you've got a little bit of a plan to know that you've got food, because everyone gets hungry. And by the time, you get ready, you've still got a few hours potentially until you're eating. So if you've not eaten from getting up at 6 a.m, getting ready till your wedding
you're going
at
to keel
2.
over.
Yeah. So do that. And then I think the biggest thing is your getting ready timeline. So a realistic timeline. And if you're confused about that, if you have got hair and makeup artists, ask them. They'll normally give you a plan for the morning and they'll tell you, this is who we're going to do, this is how long it's going to take, this is the order in which we'll do it. Bride should never go last.
No, heavens no.
Because you just need time to settle, to tweak, to do all the bits, make sure.
And also if you're having photos, if you've got getting ready photos factored in, that is going to take longer.
Yeah, I would say you need your dress on and finishing touches done an hour before you plan to leave. Because in real time, an hour before you plan to leave will be 30 to 45 minutes before you plan to leave. And at that point, that is when you want those few gorgeous photos. Are you doing a first look with any family or bridesmaids or with your other half? Are you doing that? So hair and makeup artists are brilliant at giving you those timelines. But one of the biggest shocks I think most of my couples get is when the hair and makeup artist says, we're arriving at 6 a.m.
Exactly that. I was just about to chip in with that, because people don't realise 2 makeup artists, 6 bridesmaids, mother of the bride, mother of the groom, and the bride. You know, if you want all of those done to the standard that you want to be sort of like photo gorgeousness, it is going to take time. So, and 6 a.m. is standard.
Yeah, 6 a.m. is standard. And they always leave enough time at the end to do final touch-ups, final moments. So you just need to give yourself that space. So that is the getting ready bits that are often forgotten.
Okay, so let's move on now to my little area of loveliness. Ceremony details. Little things really do make a big difference. Never more so, actually, than perhaps around your ceremony. So from your point of view as a planner and a coordinator, where do you really sort of see the little things in a ceremony that might be forgotten?
Plan A, plan B. I mean, we did an amazing wedding on the beach, didn't we?
We did.
And we were so lucky. It was beautiful. It was lovely. And we were able to do it on the beach. What happens if you can't?
Exactly that.
So, and that's not a little thing. Actually, do you know what this isn't? This shouldn't be have we forgotten to do this?
This is a basic.
This is a basic quite early doors. But the little things, one of my absolute, in actual fact, I don't know if I should say this on the podcast, the thing that drives fear through my soul is playing the music.
Oh, me too. I always say, find somebody else. Don't give it to me. For the love of God, don't give it to me.
You can ask me to do pretty much anything on your wedding day. You can ask me to do the music. I will do it. But it will be my most fearful moment is cueing the music for you to walk down the aisle. So making sure you know who is pressing play, when are they doing it,
and have they downloaded the track? Oh, please!
Yes.
Otherwise, we're going to get adverts, or the Wi-Fi is going to cut. If you are having somebody with a Bluetooth speaker and a phone, make them download it and know that it is done. Don't chance it. Ask to see the evidence. Go full on Bridezilla if you need to,
and make sure they've tested it being plugged into any speakers. Yeah, there is I think it's in Lewis, actually. There's a registry office or, where you can go and get legally married. And the sound system cuts out all the time. Like if you don't leave the phone live on and you haven't turned it off, what's the word? When it hasn't, like the screen shuts down or whatever. If it shuts down, then the whole thing disconnects. So you need to have someone sat there with a phone constantly
keeping it alive.
And it's things like that make a big difference because it can just delay everything.
And that's not just queuing a phone up. You know, if you've got live musicians, who's queuing them? How do we know when the bride is ready to make her entrance and you want your harpist or your saxophonist or your soloist to start? Know what the system is.
Yeah.
And make sure that, again, at least everybody who is closely involved in that moment knows that as well.
Yeah, because otherwise you can have a few different people nodding at a musician and a musician sitting there going, everyone's nodding at me, but they're nodding at different times. I don't know what to do. So those bits, I think things like having a confetti plan, like who's handing it out, where is it going to be, make sure it's ready for as soon as you've left and you're walking out again. And then I think from your point of view, I suppose, what's the deal with like microphones and
so microphones, I will be hounded by other celebrants. My personal choice is never to use a microphone personally, because I have a theatrical background and I know how to project. But also I think particularly with outdoors weddings, if you've chosen a natural setting, I'm not a great fan of amplification of much, really, because I think it kind of ruins the vibe. But if a couple are going to be making their own promises to each other, they will need to be mic'd. Handing them a mic that they have never seen before, that they perhaps never practiced with. So if you know that you're going to be working with a sound system of mics and amplifiers of any description, have a rehearsal. Even if you're not having a full rehearsal, get together with whoever is supplying those and have a go with them. So you know how close to hold it to your mouth. You know things like, is there going to be a mic stand for you to put it back into? Is your celebrant going to hand the mic to you? Again, that sort of logistical practical stuff.
I find microphones really visually tricky to...
Photographers aren't great fans of them.
And then if you think about videography, if you really want your vows captured and you are outside or something, a lot of the time the videographer will want to put a lapel mic.
Yeah.
And actually, does your outfit allow for that? Where is that going? What does it look like? I think there's a lot of little things to just consider there, and really worth speaking to whoever's doing your kind of PA setup to understand the best ways of doing it. And then how does it work with like vows or promises to each other? Do you hold them? Do they hold them?
I generally say just to, in fact, I'm just about to go and do this after we've recorded up for the wedding I'm doing on Wednesday. My couple are making promises to each other that they have written themselves, rather than leave them to worry about printing them, bringing them. They don't want each other to see them. So they've both independently sent those to me. I will print those.
Lovely.
And I will put them on nice pieces of card. And then at the appropriate moment, I will just hand them.
Yeah.
And I will put them on cards, something that's got a little bit of substance to it, because as we are outside, if it's windy, the videographer won't want to pick up rustling paper. So something that's stable and isn't going to fly away. But again, if you are planning on saying something, reading something, if people are reading, if you've got people reading poems or readings or making any kind of speech during the ceremony, who is going to print those words and hand them to them? Yeah. Being a control freak, I like to have a copy of anything and everything that is going to be said, sung, whatever during your ceremony.
I think that's great. And also it means that you're the backup as well.
Exactly,
if someone's like it's fallen out of the pocket or something.
Worst case scenario, I can hand them my script and go, there you go.
Yeah.
But I think that sort of thing, again, it's a detail, and it is one that often gets just, I'll ask about that later. And later ends up sometimes being the day before.
It always is the day before.
So I would just say, talk to your celebrant about all of the sort of fine details of the ceremony. They will always help you out if you can. And this other thing as well about your ceremony, people like to know what is expected of them. Guests really do. So ask your celebrant. It's a really nice opportunity for us to connect with your guests before the bridal party arrives.
Yeah.
Tell us, is there a ruling around confetti? What do you want them to do at the very end of the ceremony? Where should they go? What's happening next? You may have put all of that information on your invite or on your wedding website. People don't always remember.
No, definitely
just
not.
Having that last minute so at the end of the ceremony, you're going to be handed confetti cones. If you can all then make your way out through that door, people feel confident knowing what's expected of them. Use your celebrant to be your mouthpiece at that moment in time, just before the ceremony kicks in.
Love it.
So leading on from guest experience, really, reception and guest experience, I guess this is where a lot of details might slip. So what do we need to know for this one?
I mean, I think the basic thing is make sure there's enough seats for everybody at your wedding. And it happens more often than you would think that we get to the point where everyone's going to be seated and people go, I haven't got a seat.
Oh.
Or I've been forgotten off the list. And it's so...
Is it just miscalculation, or somebody's nicked a chair to go and stand on something to put a bit of bunting up or something and not brought it back?
I think sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's where you're doing your seating plan. If you've got RSVPs still coming in and things and people coming and going, and then someone drops out, or the caterer asks for your seating plan in a different order to what you've done it in, and you're copying and pasting and you're...
It's easy done.
It's easily done. And I think having someone to just quickly do a whiz round, so on the day coordinator, do a whiz round of your tables and your table plan and just go, is everybody on the table plan, do they each have a seat? That still doesn't help if you've forgotten to put someone on your table plan. But just always, as with all crockery hires, always get a couple of extra chairs.
Yeah.
So never go with the number of chairs to the number of guests. Get a couple of extra. They can be put in a back room, put in a catering tent, whatever it is. I think making sure there's enough seating for everyone is really key. And that goes back to ceremony a bit, making sure you've got enough seating for the bridal party once they've walked down and saving those seats. Guest experience and toilets. I think we've probably talked about toilets before because it's one of my biggest things. Where are the toilets? Are they nice? Are they clean?
They have to be nice and clean. It's a non-negotiable in my book.
And actually, if it's you that's getting married, depending on what you're wearing, you might want to consider, have you got the toilets with the blue flush? And how big are those cubicles? If you're going in there and you're going to hoik up your giant meringue, you do not want to press flush and those blue chemicals splatter all over you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just keep an eye on things like that. And accessibility, can guests get around comfortably? Quite often with marquee weddings, more often with marquee weddings, you try and fit in more than what can fit in the marquee. So once your guests are all sat down at the table, how much room is there for the catering staff to walk by?
Yeah.
How much room is there if your guest that's in a wheelchair or
you've got
a push
a buggy.
chair wants to get through and you've actually seated them at the end of the marquee, but they need to go to the toilet or they need to get up and leave? How do they get in and out? Yeah. So really having an idea, and it is quite hard to do that. You really need to work with your venue, your marquee supplier, to understand the amount of room. But yeah, I think that's kind of your guest experience in terms of the sit down and the reception there.
Okay, so the biggie really, I suppose, food and drink. Fine details.
Yeah, so I think we're going to talk about food and drink a lot in the next episode because there is a lot to it. But the bits that I suppose, have you forgotten them? Probably not, but how do you do it? It is things like dietary requirements. I've got a wedding coming up and they've got one guest that is severely allergic to nuts.
Oh.
Traces of nuts, everything. Actually, most caterers can do most dietary requirements, but severe nut allergy with traces, it might be that you have to actually look to get a meal in from somewhere that is completely packaged and served.
I've done a couple of weddings, actually, where that's happened.
Yeah.
And it was okay, actually, but, you've got to be safe. I mean, that's talk about a real downer on your day, anaphylactic shock and a wedding is not the sort of thing you really want, is
not
it?
what you're after. But I think anything that's really severe like that, let your caterers know early, because you don't have to let your caterers know dietaries until 4 weeks before. But if you know there's something quite
major,
major, then do that. Other food and drinks bit, drinks during the reception. How many drinks? A lot of people go, oh yes, we'll give a glass of fizz, but your reception's an hour and a half long.
Yeah.
What happens after everyone's had one glass of fizz? What are you doing there? And does that mean that if your budget doesn't allow for more, is the bar open? Can people buy a drink?
Yeah.
Or do you need to shorten your reception so that people aren't standing around waiting? Always having just a big Kilner jar of water on the bar, ready for people to go and help themselves at all times, is a must. But yeah, just think about how many drinks you're serving. And evening food is such an afterthought a lot of the time. You might have been like, oh yeah, we're feeding them all of this. Do we need evening food? Well,
it's a long day.
It's a long day, and it really, again, depends on how long your day is. But if you are going for evening food, when is it? You don't want it too early, too close to the end of your meal. You don't want it so late. And actually, some caterers will say that's too late. But having a good time for that is generally during if you've got a band, the first break after their first set.
I always think that works really well because it feels like a natural point for everyone to just have a bit of a breather, a bacon roll or whatever's going, pizza or whatever you're doing.
Yeah, and it's also a really good time for your caterers because the caterers often need to feed the band. So if they're doing food at that point, logistically that makes sense as well. So worth having a think about that. And I think, like I said, just make sure you've got all bases covered for what people are going to do, how long they've got to spend time in different places. Is there enough water on the tables? Is there water on the bar? Lots of bits like that.
Wildly Wed, the real wedding planning podcast.
So then we're on to those moments where you think, the bits people forget until the very last minute.
Which are things like chargers for phones, speakers, everything.
Yeah, emergency kit, plasters, painkillers, safety pins, deodorant.
Cash or tips for suppliers if needed.
What about a gift card? A gift table or a card box, making sure you know where that's going. You might have got a box, but where are you putting it?
And who takes everything home at the end of the night?
Do your suppliers know what time they can get in the next day to collect things? Do they have to come at the end of the night? All those bits.
And what time should your guests collect their cars by?
A lot of venues, if it's a venue that's and the wedding the next day, that's an early one. So you might want to think about how they're moving about. So,
and then you've got those literally the end of the night logistics. What are we needing to think about there?
Well, I think really importantly, if you have got asked for gifts or cards, that's probably the main one you need to make sure you know someone is going to collect them. They're going to put them in your room or they're going to take them home and really look after them, because that's the kind of thing I wouldn't want to leave lying around overnight.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think knowing who's doing that. Your caterer will generally gather any personal items that are left on tables or left around, or your venue might. Where are they going? Who's collecting them? Who's going to check in on that? And what happens, this is back to what your venue's hours are and how it works for you. What happens to things like the decor that you've bought? Is that being packaged back up into boxes that you've provided? Is it going away somewhere? You've just got to think about that takedown. The last thing, and I will push and push and push, do not pack up at the end of your night.
No, for goodness sake.
It's so hard, but sometimes your venue might mean you have to do that. So just have a think about that. And
who do you delegate to?
Yeah, who do you delegate to? And please, try and avoid that as much as possible, because there's no bigger downer than that. And then just little bits like your overnight bags. Did you already pack those a week before and take them wherever you're staying, or take them to the venue the day before? How are you getting home?
Or getting to wherever you're going?
Yeah. And how are your guests getting out, depending on where you are? If you're choosing a really out there location, have you already given your guests all the taxi details? Have they pre-booked? Put that in your invitations. So there's a few end of night logistics there. And then, as we always do, we've got our top tips. So I'm going to do the DIY top tip this episode. And that for me is putting all your stationery and all your favours into individual boxes per table.
Ah, okay.
So when you're looking at everything, you package it up and you put your menus, your nameplate settings, favours, any kids bits. You put them table by table in individual envelopes or boxes, so that when you get to the venue, whoever's laying up can go, oh, that's table 1. I've got everything for table 1. And table by table, it just makes it work. And I think also it gives you a bit of satisfaction and a bit of calm when you know that you've done that bit of planning.
Fair play. And I'm going to take care of our sustainability tip on this episode. Plan for after the wedding. Now, look, so much gets wasted. We've covered this many times. Weddings aren't the most sustainable thing. So let's not waste any more than we have to. And some stuff does get wasted simply because you haven't thought about how to repurpose it. So think about things like flowers. Where could you donate those to? Maybe your guests would like them. Maybe there's going to be something happening in the venue the following day. They would appreciate hanging on to them. But really give that some consideration. Reusing or reselling your decor. There's so many sites that you can do that.
We talk about this quite a lot, don't we?
Just minimise that single-use item, for goodness sake. Not necessary, almost always. And returning hired items really promptly.
Totally agree.
Get it done. Little bit of planning here and there makes a big difference.
And our supplier top tip is from Charlotte. Her business is Drink by Charlotte, and she's a bar supplier, so all the booze.
Okay, so my top tip for a wedding couple would definitely have to be to choose a drinks experience and not just a bar. From signature drinks inspired by meaningful moments to the atmosphere created throughout the evening from the staff looking after you. Those are the details guests remember long after the wedding, and it's well worth it.
Thank you, Charlotte. And on to our next episode tease. We love a tease. We are going to be revisiting food and drink with sort of clever catering and tablescaping. There's going to be a lot of meat on that one.
I can't wait. And then where can you find us? You can find us. We are the Wildly Wed Podcast at Wildly Wed Pod on Instagram or on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen. Wildly Wed Pod. Rate, review, share and subscribe.
Nice.
Say I do to the Wildly Wed Podcast. Follow us on Insta at Wildly Wed Pod.